Remember that boxes of documents were eventually retrieved from Trump's estate. So why would a federal magistrate, a judge in West Palm Beach, sign off on a search warrant? What else did they think was being held by Trump? We know that the judge agreed with the DOJ that there was probable cause of a potential crime, but what's the crime exactly? Earlier today, CNN was first to report that federal officials visited Trump's Palm Beach home in June to discuss those materials, including some potentially classified materials that were found there. According to multiple outlets, one of those Justice Department officials, who was a counterintelligence official, visited Trump's home and met with two of his lawyers in the spring. Tonight, the Wall Street Journal was one of the first to report that federal agents executed that search warrant in part because they were concerned that classified materials remained at Mar-a-Lago after 15 boxes had been retrieved earlier this year. The Washington Post also has new reporting on the search warrant tonight. Here's the lead. Quote, in the months before the FBI's dramatic move to execute a search warrant at former President Donald Trump's Florida home, federal authorities grew increasingly concerned that Trump or his lawyers and aides had not, in fact, returned all the documents and other material that were government property. Officials became suspicious that when Trump gave back items to the National Archives about 7 months ago, either the former president or people close to him held on to key records. Trump's lawyer, Christina Bobb, confirms tonight to NBC News that federal agents took roughly a dozen boxes from Mar-a-Lago yesterday. Now, this is in addition to the 15 boxes they recovered in January. The New York Times reports that this Justice Department investigation into Trump's handling of the alleged classified documents is separate from the department's January 6th inquiry. So we certainly have an awful lot to unpack. Joining us now is the perfect person to go to, Katie Benner. She covers the Justice Department for the New York Times. Katie, it is good to see you. Thank you for being with us today. I've tried to sort of lay it out. It's a bit confusing because there's the mechanics of the search warrant, and then there's the what are they looking for and what do they think the crime is. To the best of your knowledge at this point, what are the answers to those questions?
Sure. So at this point, the search warrant was for documents related to the National Archives matter and really nothing more. Now, that said, we've spoken to many experts who say that if in obtaining information from Mar-a-Lago, investigators find items or documents or anything else that could pertain to other investigations, they are allowed to use that information. However, in terms of the actual search warrant itself, they are to execute the warrant based on the probable cause that they've laid out before the judge. And again, we understand this to be the issue of whether or not Trump returned all the documents that he should have to the National Archives. Interestingly, the person who has the answer to this question of what was taken from Mar-a-Lago is Donald Trump himself, because we know that when federal agents execute a search warrant and take items from somebody's property, they leave an inventory list of what they've taken. So the person who could answer this question for us today is Donald Trump.
So this has always been a tricky one. How to know what should be with the archives and shouldn't have stayed with Trump, right? Like, what have we always known what we were looking for here? Because there were those 15 boxes that were taken out in January. Now there's 12 more boxes. Does somebody have a list of this is the stuff I need and it's not where it's supposed to be and it's important to either national security or the January 6th investigation, or it just isn't supposed to be with Donald Trump?
So initially, the National Archives, they felt that they were not getting everything they should have from the Trump White House after he left the residence. You know, and part of they're doing an archival project, so they can tell when documents are discussed in emails and in other ways. They're cross-referencing documents. They'd heard about documents, so they knew that there were some materials they weren't getting, and they asked for those documents. And that is when they received the 15 boxes at the beginning of this year. Now, what is interesting is that the archives was not confident that Donald Trump had given them absolutely everything. And you see in their communications with Congress in February that the National Archives said, we have asked Donald Trump to please turn over anything more that he may or may not find. So they were not confident those 15 boxes were the last word. And they also notified the Justice Department at that time and said, of what we have obtained of these 15 boxes, we do see that there's classified material here you might want to investigate and understand, because mishandling of classified information can be criminally charged. So the Justice Department then began to look into it.
Now, you reported today that the FBI's search of Mar-a-Lago is not related to the Justice Department's probe of January 6th, that they're two separate matters. Tell me again, because you hinted at this in the beginning, that if they find something that they're looking for, what's the overlap, if there is any, between what happened yesterday and the Department of Justice separate investigation into January 6th?
Sure. So far that we know, there is no overlap. Again, they executed a search warrant to obtain documents related to whether or not Donald Trump had given back everything that he should have to the National Archives and whether or not he had improperly handled classified information. There could be overlap in the future. And again, I say could because we do not know whether this would happen, and it may not happen. But there could be overlap in the future if, in looking through the materials obtained, the Justice Department finds any documents related to its other ongoing investigation or any documents that look like they point to criminal activity.
Earlier tonight, the Republican Congressman Scott Perry of Pennsylvania released a statement saying that the FBI had confiscated his cell phone. Now, we heard at a previous January 6th hearing that Congressman Perry allegedly sought a pardon from Donald Trump after the Capitol attack. Are these matters related? Is it just a coincidence that the FBI got Scott Perry's cell phone, or he talked about it today and the raid happened yesterday? Are they related or unrelated as far as you know?
So I would say that these matters are not related per se. It's interesting to me that Congressman Perry wants to intertwine them together. He wants them to be related because we've seen the really strong Republican reaction to the search warrant on Mar-a-Lago. We've seen Republicans coalesce around Donald Trump, even those who had been sort of moving away from him, really in lockstep move to defend him and show that he is the leader of the Republican Party. So politically, it really behooves Scott Perry to say that these things are one and the same. However, we know that Congressman Perry could have information that's important to other ongoing Justice Department investigations, particularly the plan into the fake elector scheme, which was, submitting alternate slates of electors falsely saying that Trump had won in key swing states, as well as the investigation into Jeffrey Clark, who was working with President Trump to try to undo the election, and their liaison was Congressman Scott Perry.
Katie, no one better than you to break this all down. This is a complicated matter, and we are grateful that you took time to join us. At New York Times Justice Department, the reporter Katie Benner. We appreciate it, Katie.